Although the tail fin actually started showing up on car designs in the 40s, it was the 50s that just picked that trend up and sprinted off with it right into the golden age of American car designs. You saw those curves and the slants and the chrome and the plastic. That defined the 1950s as an era of style, of power, and of prosperity. It always says something about the time. It says that the 50s were sleek, futuristic, and progressive.
Those 10 years let us twist, there they let us cruise. We found our rhythm in blue suede shoes, leather jackets and slick back hair. You really had to be there or be square. We got lost in the 50s when everything was nifty and a dime could buy 2 packs of cards. We had our favorite team. It was a golden decade, it seemed. 10 years still fresh in my mind.
When 1953 rolled around, well, that's just 3 short years into the new decade, and unfortunately 3 years into the next war. However, in 1953, the U.S. could relax again, take a deep breath, because the violence along the 38th parallel had stopped. And the Korean War stopped on July 27th, and it was ended with an armistice, not a peace treaty. So in actuality, as you've probably heard before, the war is still going on between the North and South Korea. It just stopped at the demilitarized zone, where people always try to defect and big skirmishes occur. For all intents and purposes, the Korean War ended in 1953. However, there was some other bad things going on at that time. It was one of the worst things you could do to your country, and that is spy. Spy and turn over state secrets to the Soviet Union, which is what the Rosenbergs were accused of doing, and they were found guilty. And in this very year of 1953, they were executed for espionage. But there was good news in 1953, too. Some Cambridge University scientists published a paper in the journal Nature announcing the discovery of something different, something none of us have ever heard of before, the double helix chemical structure of DNA. Yeah, 1953, that's when that was released to the public. And the rest, well, it defines just about everything we do now. You can have your background checked, genealogy. You can check for disease. You can get cured with the knowledge and the manipulation of DNA. It's an amazing thing that was discovered back in 1953. Something else that happened in 1953 that it's baseball related. It's baseball news. Some of the teams started moving. Some of the teams just picked up and started moving across the country. Here's why. There were several reasons why, but one of the things that happened was air travel. You could now fly across the country. You didn't have to take a bus, didn't have to take a train. You could go right over the top of the Rocky Mountains and be out on the West Coast. And that's where some of the teams moved to. The Boston Braves, they moved to Milwaukee, which isn't quite across the Rocky Mountains, but it is across the Midwest. And the St. Louis Browns moved to Baltimore, so they went to the coast on the east side from the Mississippi River. So it was a huge change for baseball, a big change. And they weren't the only teams that moved, right? In 1953, here are the awards as they were for the National League. The batting champ was Carl Furillo. He batted .344. The home run champ was Eddie Matthews. He hit 47 home runs. RBI leader was Roy Campanella at 142. The wins leader, well, that was a tie between Warren Spahn and Robin Roberts. They each had 23. However, Warren Spahn had the lowest ERA at 2.10, and Robin Roberts had the most strikeouts with 198. Over in the American League, batting champ was Mickey Vernon. He batted .337 for that year. Home run champ was the same as the RBI champ, Al Rosen. He had 43 dingers and 145 RBIs. The wins leader that year was Bob Porterfield for the Washington Senators. He had 22. And the lowest ERA in the league was owned by a Yankee, Ed Lopat. He had a 2.42 ERA. And the strikeouts, White Sox pitcher Billy Pierce with 182 strikeouts. The World Series, 1953, was won by the New York Yankees. They did that a lot in the 50s. They beat the Brooklyn Dodgers 4-2, and Billy Martin was the MVP of that World Series. Now, despite all of the changes that I have been talking about that occurred in 1953, we still had some of the best baseball ever. 1950s baseball. And there are some of the finest cards ever made of some of the finest players that have ever played. Now, what are we going to do in 1953 card-wise? I told you earlier that I didn't want to just go through every top set and every Bowman set for the 50s because, well, you've probably seen those at all the card shows. You've seen them, on eBay, and you're familiar with those. There were a lot of other great card sets in the 50s. And the card set that we're going to go ahead and take a look at today is going to be the Johnston Cookie set, 1953. This was the first set of 3 regional sets that Johnston Cookies were to release. 53 was the first one. And the Boston Braves, like I'd said earlier, had just moved to the Beer City, Milwaukee, and the natives in Milwaukee were excited. And so was the marketing department at Johnston Cookies. Cards were distributed locally and inserted into boxes of Pop's Cookies, which was just one of the brands of the Johnston Cookie line. Inserted in those boxes of cookies, there were 25 players. They're only slightly different from today's standard issues, measuring just slightly larger at approximately 2 9/16 wide by 3 5 inches tall. The cards get a little larger in 1954 and 55 sets. They get a little taller. So the design is very similar to the 1952 tops. When you get a good look at it, I'll just let you see one right now. Doesn't it look a little reminiscent of the 52 tops? Well, the autograph at the bottom is a facsimile. And it's got a very old logo to the left there. The back of the card has a tomahawk. And that has the Milwaukee Braves name inside of it, along with the number and some biographical information on the back, too. At the bottom here, as you'll notice, has some information there about the cookie company. And their slogan, "No one makes cookies like Johnston." There's a mail-in offer also. So you didn't have to go and collect and eat all these cookies. You could send away for them, and that was a way to get these, too. And that gave you a real good way of getting a complete set. It turned out that these, I keep waving them around at you, that the 53 Johnston Cookies were the easiest set to obtain. The other 2 years, 54 and 55, are a little bit tougher. And if you've ever seen those before, they're very similar, but they're longer. They're a much taller card. One of the things that I never knew until much later were these cards. I'm going to show them to you in just a moment. These cards were colorized from black and white photographs. They, in an old-fashioned way, airbrushed them. They did such a good job, I never knew for years, 20, 25, 30 years later, that these were airbrushed. They were colorized, that's what I should say. They were colorized from black and white pictures. And I just think this is a really neat set. Now, there's only 2 Hall of Famers in this set. There's some good ball players in here, but only 2 Hall of Famers. And Hank Aaron's not one of them, unfortunately. So let me show these to you. We'll go one at a time. I've got the full set here, 1953 Johnston Cookies. This is manager Charlie Grimm. Can you look at it right there and see if that's been colorized? Can you tell? I can now. I look at it now and I can tell that the Braves signature across their the jersey is really, really stark and bright and formed really well. So it looks like it was just printed on the top. It's still a beautiful card. It's Charlie Grimm. This is John Antonelli. Second card in the set. He's also a pitcher for the team. The first, 12 cards maybe. Maybe it's not that many, are all pitchers. Vern Bickford. He had a short career. Bob Buell. He had a long career. I remember him for several different sets going into the 50s and 60s. Now here comes a real good ball player, not in the Hall of Fame, but he was a great pitcher for the Braves. Lou Burdette. I always want to call him Lefty Lou Burdette because of the card in 1959 where he's faking everybody out with a left-handed glove, and he was not a lefty. It's just what they called that card, but he was a good pitcher. Here's Dave Cole. Here's Ernie Johnson, another pitcher. I'm going to show you the back of the card one more time just so you have an idea. I like the back of the card. I like the tomahawk. I like how they handled that with the name and the number in there. I just think that their team name, the Milwaukee Braves, and the number, it's just unique. Something we hadn't seen at that. I say we like I was alive back then. Something they didn't see back in those days. Somebody was using their imagination. Dave Jolly. This is Dave Little, or Liddell. I think it's Little. Look at those ears. It's like a car driving down the street with both doors open on each side. It's got Don Mossy ears. Okay, here is the first Hall of Famer, and by my opinion, the greatest left-hander to ever played. You might differ. If you do, drop the comments in. I want to hear what you think. Warren Spahn. Beautiful card. I like this card. Max Sercant. This is Jim Wilson. He is also a pitcher. Here's an infielder. Yep. Sibby Sisti. Here is Walker Cooper, who is also an infielder, I think. Catcher, I'm sorry, he's a catcher. He went on to coach, and I believe he managed as well, too. He was around baseball for a long time. And I think he played backup most of the time to this guy, Del Crandall. Another guy who coached and I believe managed. Catchers always make great managers, don't they? They just know so much. I think this guy's a catcher too, if I remember. Yes, Eva St. Clair. Like I said before, these were players before the set was before my time, but I absolutely fell in love with it when I saw it, and at the time it was quite affordable. And I love regional sets. I love things that are just a little outside the norm, and things that one of the reasons why I was in marketing for years, and one of the things I appreciate is somebody at the company for Johnston Cookies saw that putting somebody's face on a piece of cardboard, dropping it into a bunch of cookies, is a great way to get people to buy cookies. They saw the value in placing baseball players on cards and dropping them in the boxes of cookies to enhance the amount of cookies they would sell. I know people would do that today if they could afford it. The licensing now for Major League Baseball, for all sports, is so high. That's why you don't see a lot of this stuff anymore. Back during the 50s, 60s, 70s, there was a lot of it, a whole lot of this kind of marketing. And I just appreciate it so much. That's why I like to collect them. I've got some cheap and easy ones from the 80s, and I've got stuff like this from the 50s that I just think they're really cool. And you know, another thing too is they're small sets, so they're a little easier regarding the amount of cards you have to get for a set, as opposed to 500 or 400 cards for a full set. This is Slugger Joe Adcock. He's smiling here. You know, every time in my mind, I always see him frowning or scowling. Joe Adcock, he could hit. He could hit some home runs. Okay, George Crow. Here's a guy that later became a Yankee, I believe. Jack Dittmar. I might be wrong on that. I might be confusing that name with another one. Yeah, he's a second baseman, and I think the other one was a pitcher, Dittmar. So I might be wrong. Forgive me. Johnny Logan. He was a solid ball player for a long time. Does it bore you that all of these are like bus shots, you know, kind of close-ups? I like these. I think today's cards, there's just way too much in action. They just all look alike to me now. And some even great players like Ronald Acuna kind of looks like, O'Neal Cruz. You know, if it's just the color of the uniform, if I'm just glancing through it. They all look the same. The hitters are hitting, the catchers are catching, and the throwers are throwing. There's just nothing like this. Need a little bit of this to just break up the monotony. Johnny Logan. Okay, here comes the next Hall of Famer, Eddie Matthews. Has well over 500 home runs in the Hall of Fame. Played for the Tigers in 1968. Speaking of Tigers, Billy Bruton played for the Tigers for a few years. You know, when they talk about spark plugs on a team, this guy and Johnny Logan, that's kind of what they are. They could play the position. They were scrappy. They could hit. They could field. Billy Bruton. Sid Gordon. Here is Andy Pafko, outfielder. I'm sorry, Sid Gordon was an outfielder also. Okay, we got the last card coming up. Jim Pendleton. And that does it for the 1953 Johnston Cookie set, regional set down in Georgia, where there are all these great tasting cookies. And I loved researching this set because I got a chance to see all these great cookies. Made me hungry every time I was looking at something. Thank you for tuning me in. I had a blast looking through my cards. I hope you did too. And I just love looking at some of the stuff from the 50s. And I thank you for allowing me just to do things other than Topps and Bowman. We'll do some more. We'll do some Topps, and we'll probably do some more Bowman as well. But one of the things I hope you'll see is there's a lot of cards. There are a lot of cards in the 50s and the 60s that are small sets. And that's how you can really grow your collection, your personal collection. And you can do the singles from certain sets, but you can grow it by a full, complete set as well. And it's a lot of fun to go out and try to find these regional cards. Sometimes you cannot find them, and we will go over a few more of them. In fact, my next edition in the A Time for Cardboard Heroes will be the 1954 Red Hearts. That's another fun set, a lot like this. And they're easy to find. They're not real hard to find. They're a little expensive, especially the mantle, but we'll take a look at the 1950 Ford Red Hearts in the next edition. If you can, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Tell me if there was a mistake I made. Tell me if there was something else you'd rather see. Tell me if there was something you really enjoyed. I'd like to hear from you too on that. I really appreciate it once again, and please comment. I really want to comment, okay? Talk soon.
Cardboard meditation helps set your mind right. Thank you for watching. Show us your appreciation by clicking the like and subscribe button. Ring the bell while you're at it so you'll know when we upload a new story.